Welcome to this IABC APAC Zoom meeting on ethics. As I mentioned earlier when we were discussing it, February is IABC and the Global Alliance's Ethics Month. So we're really pleased to be able to present this session to you. For those of you that aren't IABC members, IABC is a great professional association. Our motto is "We are stronger together," and we're really keen on engaging professional speakers and experts in particular area, like we're talking today about ethics. But my view about IABC is one of the strengths of the organisation is that we have such an amazing group of members, both in the Asia Pacific region but globally as well. To me, that is the strength of IABC. I describe it to people as like a secret handshake. If you're an IABC member and you've got a problem within your organisation or a personal professional issue, there are members there that are championing the bit to help you. So I strongly encourage you to think about becoming a member. February is member month for IABC, so it'll be a great time for you to join. If you'd like to reach out to Mel or myself or Nancy today, we'd be happy to talk to you about membership and how you can go about signing up. Introducing myself, I'm Ross Monahan. I am the one of two Asia Pacific Professional Development Directors for the region, and the other is Melinda Coyne, who's joining us. Hi Melinda, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Ross. I think you're right about the whole Stronger Together and the kind of the global connections that we've got with IABC, because you can see that within this group and also with the various, speakers and guests that we have from, Canada to Malaysia. So it's great. The other thing I should mention to everyone here is this is a slightly different format to what we've been doing. So hope you enjoy this Zoom meeting. So hopefully, make it as interactive as you like. Feel free to ask the guests questions, and then we'll sort of have some breakout groups and throw a few curly questions and conundrums to each other. But I'm really looking forward to this discussion because, as Ross said, February is the IABC Ethics Month, and what we're really going to be exploring is what it means to be an ethical communicator and why is ethical decision making important, and also how the IABC Code of Ethics is really important to organisations to guide their decision making as well. So important to kind of talk through these things and be aware of them as well, because it's the kind of stuff you need to embed professionally and I guess in your personal life as well. I know when we were talking to Barbara Puffer another time, it's really a good guide for people in general.
Absolutely. And a big thank you to Malar, Malar is there. How are you? Malar is also a member of the IABC Ethics Committee and had a chat to us about organising this session today. So thank you, and has done a lot of organising it. So a big thank you to Malar. Where are you joining us from today, Malar?
Today, I am very lucky. I'm in Penang, which is Dr. Sabariah's hometown. And we have three people from Penang here, Kevin, Krista, and Leighton, who are also Penang people, so island people today.
Well, there's a few of us here who are very jealous about where you are at the moment. So look, thank you very much for that. On to today's session. As Melinda already has mentioned, this is sort of a new format for us. We want to make it informal, interactive. We've got a couple of great guests who are going to really delve into some great ethical issues and how we can use IABC's Code of Ethics as a compass to guide our professional practice. So if you do have any questions, feel free to raise them throughout the session. Just to let you know, after our speakers, we'll allow about 5 minutes for any questions. And then we'll be going into breakout rooms where we can have a bit of a chat amongst ourselves. Don't feel like you need to say anything, but if you would like to chat with other members and one of our speakers about any issues that today's session has raised or any help that you need dealing with ethical issues, that will be fine. So formally today, would like to thank and welcome our two guests. First up, Associate Professor Dr. Sabariah Salleh, who we're calling Dr. Sab from now on. She is the Deputy Director for Communication Teams, Economic Action Council, the AEC Secretariat, Economic Planning Unit for the Prime Minister's Office. So thank you for joining us. And also Nancy Arab is the Principal and Chief Strategist for ARABESQUE Communications and Chair of the IABC Ethics Committee. So she's really, really well placed to talk to us about IABC and the Code of Ethics and the role of the Ethics Committee. But first up now, Dr. Sab is going to present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ross, and thank you so much, Malar, for recommending me. It is a pleasure to be part of this special session. I will start by sharing my slides. Okay, so I have prepared some slides. I know Ross has said that it's an interactive session, but being an academician, I also teach at a university, so it's like a habit to have slides as well. Okay, so allow me to share my slides. Okay,
Dr. Saab, do you mind if people ask questions on the way throughout your presentation, or would you rather they hold off?
Please feel free to ask questions, although I might not see it, and it will need help to for someone to alert me because I'm focusing on my slides.
That's all right. So feel free, anyone post questions in the chat. Ross and I will throw them to Dr. Saab when we can, or feel free to ask the question yourself in person. So thank you.
Sorry, Ross,
Yes.
sorry, Dr. Saab, I have to interrupt. Ross, I have a question. Since the session is being recorded, do we all get to have a copy of it later once it's ended?
Yes, absolutely. If anyone would like a link.
You,
and we're mainly recording it for the two presentations as well, just to let you know. And certainly if there are any confidential issues, we will not send that out. We'll edit those out as well. And certainly the breakout rooms won't be recorded.
Thank you, Ross.
All right. Okay. So I know the topic today is on ethics, misinformation, and disinformation. But since I'm actually an expert in misinformation and disinformation, I'll be focusing on that. And because I know Nancy is the expert on ethics. Okay. So I'll be sharing about misinfo and disinfo. But when you discuss misinfo and disinfo, we cannot run away from this phrase: information disorder. It's about the influx of information, how easy it is for us to get information which may be false or may be true. So I would like to ask all of you a question which I hope you can answer. How many social media accounts do you have? I'm very interested to know how many social media accounts do you have, and how many social media accounts does the company you work for have. So if you can, just throw me the answer, let me know how many, how many do you have? I can't really see the, okay, so, right, okay, 3, more than 20, Ross, wow. Personally, 5, and company 3, yes, 4 and 2, 2, and yeah, I myself, I think I have 5, and I lost count of how many social media accounts that I have to, take care of or manage for the company that I am working with, for the organization I am working with. There's just, so a lot of platforms and channels for us to share our opinion, and there's just a lot of ways for us to share our opinion. So in Malaysia, the statistics in Malaysia, at least 91% of Malaysians have a Facebook account, and that 63% has an Instagram account, and we use WhatsApp a lot. I think it's similar as well as in India. And Telegram is only makes up of 40%. So this shows how easily for us to share information and to get information, to access information. And this is worrying because anyone and everyone is a content creator. Like, if I sell, this is an example I got from Shopee, an online shopping platform. When you buy even like a mini square pot plant, people can give or rate or rank how your service and about your product. They can give you a 5-star or a 4-star. They can give reviews, and it's the same for anything. For when you watch a movie, you can give a review. When you go and eat somewhere, you eat out at a restaurant, you can share it on an Instagram account, how the restaurant food is delicious or how the service it's bad, and even hotels and etc. So anyone and everyone is a content creator, and to be honest, it's quite worrying. Because there are just so many ways for people to jeopardize our organization that we work with false comments, with comments which can tarnish the reputation of our company or even of our employees or ourselves. So it's worrying. And this, the ability to be able to share information, the ease to be a content creator has actually made some people famous and made some people a lot of money. So this Pamela is an example of an influencer who just started out by sharing exercise videos. I'm a follower, right? So she started out by sharing exercise videos, and then she went on to become brand ambassador, and she's now an influencer, and she has introduced her own brand of wellness food and snacks, and she is Forbes 30 under 30. And this is an example of a Malaysian who started out by writing a blog. Her name is Vivi Yusof, right? So she has a blog, Proud Dark, and she has a huge follower. And consequently, she introduced a shopping platform. It's called Fashion Ballet, and she's one of the richest, I think, influencer in Malaysia. She has a huge and thriving business. So, being able to share information has people money, but at the same time, this excess of information, this tsunami of information is worrying because there are information which may not be true, which is misinfo or malinfo. Or disinfo that is being shared, for instance, in this group Ivermectin Malaysia, which has more than 10,000 subscribers sharing their experience, about the usage of Ivermectin in curing COVID-19, where to buy it, which pharmacy has it, which doctor secretly sells it, and etc. So this is also worrying because this influx of misinfo and disinfo can cause, repercussions, which is dangerous. For instance, in Malaysia, you can be charged with spreading false COVID-19 news. Okay, that is on the regulations and law point of view. But I think what is more worrying is that sometimes it can cause harm, it can cause death. Like in Iran, more than 700 people died because they drank methanol, as they believe, that it can cure COVID-19. So this is something which is worrying, and this is, the repercussions or the consequences of this tsunami and influx of information. So the tsunami of information, I would say, can either make or break your organization. So imagine someone leaving a bad comment, like, and I'm an academician, and then my students leave a bad comment about me, I did not teach properly, I'm a bad lecturer and all that. It can definitely tarnish my reputation as a lecturer. So this strategy, I would say, is a communication strategy, and people use it to kill character. They use it in politics, in campaigns, and as all of us are business communicators, we definitely try to use the strategy of sharing information, obviously, to create trust, and to make people, to create brand loyalty, for instance, to our organization, because that is ultimately what our goal would be. right? To create trust and also brand loyalty, so people would buy our brand, would come or hire our services and get our consultation and all that. So there are a lot of strategies that is being used by companies, by organizations, by ministries, government offices, and all that. But I would just like to say sometimes, when you share too much information, it can lead to the spread of misinformation. It can create confusion. It can make people assume the wrong things. So this is actually a real example from Malaysia's very own Ministry of Health. But again, this is like in 2021. Okay, it has changed now. Thank God, after a lot of comments, the strategy in announcing the numbers of COVID cases in Malaysia was by using this map. Now, I mean, people might say there's nothing wrong in sharing a map and putting numbers and all that, but from a communicator point of view, right, using the color red can create panic and make people worried. And you may question, why is it this country, Perlis, only has 3 cases, but it is also colored in red? What about Labuan? It only has 16 cases, but it is also in red, the same shade, the same color as, Selangor, which has over 7,000 cases, or Kuala Lumpur, which has over 2,000 cases. So this is something that a lot of people commented on, because at this point of time, what Malaysia was trying to do is we're trying to open up our economy and all our shops and all that. But people were worried because they are seeing all these red colors, despite the numbers of cases in some states are low. So this create unnecessary confusion, unnecessary drama, and people were really, really worried. And I'm sharing another example here. So this came from not from my office, because I work at the Economic Action Council, but it became a hot issue. People were questioning, because at this point of time, June 2021, what we wanted to do was we wanted to open up, the manufacturing businesses, all the factories and all that. Right, so we just opened up the factories, and a lot of people complain and say, why are you doing it? Because 41% of the cases associated with clusters are from factories. They say, the government is going crazy. Why are you doing all this? You are not doing this for the good of the country and all that. Because this was the number that they got. Cases associated with clusters is 41% from the factory. But they fail to see, actually, this is just a misinterpretation of numbers. And because I guess, the information they're trying to convey is just too much, they fail to see that this is just the percentage based on the working cluster, whereas this is the total case, and only 6% of the whole case are made up of factory. Right, so this percentage is just, the numbers are calculated based on the clusters numbers, but based on the whole number of cases in Malaysia, the factory cluster only consists of 6%. And this actually explains why the government decided to open up all the factories. But there are a lot of Twitter comments on Facebook about it. People, I guess, who did not really understand. They only saw this number because they did not know how they came to this percentage. And this is the problem. This is how misinformation spread, right? And this you can see, I'm sharing this Colgate advertisement. And if you watch advertisements on TV, especially toothpaste adverts, they would say like 5 out of 7 dentists recommend this toothpaste, for instance, or like in this particular ad, 1 shade whiter teeth in 1 week, with an asterisk there. Okay, sorry. with an asterisk there, and at the bottom part is where they have the disclaimer to say, this is based on a certain number of research based on 10 interview with 10 doctors, for instance. So people hardly actually ever look at that small disclaimer, the asterisk, because they will focus more on this, the bigger message, the one with the big font, the one which is in the middle, slap in the middle of the advertisement, right? So I do understand that, as organizations, what we do is we do try to make money for our organization, to get people to buy our products, our services and all that. But something to we have to think about is that how ethical is it to do it this way? Are you, are you deceiving the people? Okay, another example I would like to share here. This is in Malay, okay. So I could not find another proper example. So this is durian Belanda is soursop. So it is said that soursop can kill cancer cells and can cure diabetes. So this is another example of an oversell, but this has been publicized, it's advertised in the media, and how ethical is it to do it this way? So people do make money out of it. Okay, there's this guy, Mirko Ceselkoski, you can Google him up. He's a Macedonian millionaire who claimed to help Donald Trump win the election, the previous presidential election. What he does is he shares fake news, okay? He shares disinformation, which help to campaign for Trump, and he makes tons of money, not just for himself, but also his crews, of youngsters who live in Macedonia, who now owns yachts and mansions and all that. So I'm just gonna leave with you this question. How do you balance, the fine line between, trying to create a brand for your organization, for your company, and between that and ethics? How do you do that? So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much, Ross.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Some really good questions there. Does anyone have any burning questions before we move on to Nancy? Don't think we have any at the moment, so we are running short of time. So I'm going to hand over to Nancy now to talk us through some of those issues that Dr. Saab has raised, and maybe the Code of Ethics can help us out. Thanks, Nancy. And I think you're on mute, Nancy. Just don't.
I'm just trying to share my screen.
Great.
So let me. Do you see the screen now?
We can. That's fantastic.
Excellent. I love it when the technology works across the mile. So thank you for the opportunity, and thanks both to Melinda and to Ross for hosting this. Very much appreciate the opportunity to talk today, and little challenged following Dr. Saab. Excellent presentation, but thank you also to Malar for extending the invitation. Amongst the many hats that I wear, I am the chair of the IABC Ethics Committee, and as Ross has shamelessly plugged as we've had this conversation, it is Ethics Month. So from the perspective of the IABC Ethics Committee, this is a very important showcase of ethics, and a very important month for us to focus on what are ethics, how do they fit, and the whole concept that I think Dr. Saab very ably took us through on misinformation and disinformation. And I'm going to talk a little bit from this perspective, from the communication perspective, and how misinformation and disinformation causes us some issues. So the first thing I want to show you video, and I want to watch the video, and then I want to talk about whether you believe. So my question to you, true or not?
Looked CGI to me.
I think we also have the advantage that we're looking at it on a big screen, not looking at it on your phone. But anybody think it's real? So this video was posted on January 17th. The gentleman who posted it, Alexei Patrov, is a CGI creator. It sort of made the rounds. I saw it about 3 days ago. It just, for whatever reason, showed up on my, I think it was on my Facebook stream. I don't remember what it was, some social media. It was posted on Instagram. And I watched it the first time and I'm like, wow, guy didn't live. I wonder how he got the video to people to see. And then I watched it again and I'm like, I don't think it's real. But I read the comments, and the comments that people were posting were thoughts and prayers to the person who took this video, brave person who took the video in the face of danger, what a great video to share with the world, all these comments. And there were, I think when I looked at it, about 19,000 comments that people had made around this video. The reality is it is fake. And it's not the first time it's happened. So, you know, if you go back and you look, there was another similar situation of some fake video in 2019 on the New Zealand volcanic eruption. What was falsely claimed to be actual video of a volcanic eruption is not at all true and is not at all real. But the problem is there are people out there who are taking it as real and taking it and recirculating it without thinking, without checking, and without doing the due diligence. And in fact, the creator of the video, if you look up this story from AFP Fact Check, the creator of the video says, I never posted it as a real video. I posted it to showcase my CGI experience. So even the creator is not misrepresenting it, but it's what happens in the social media world, and it's what happens with misinformation and disinformation. And there's lots of definitions on misinformation and disinformation. And I just pulled this one because really at the end of the day, what we're talking about is this concept of sharing bad or debunked information. And you know, misinformation can be things that somebody tells you, you don't fact check it, and it's a rumor that becomes fact. Disinformation is bad information that we, you know, get there by jumping to conclusions. And there's lots of situations that happen over time with this. And the problem for us as communicators is both misinformation and disinformation are really hard for us to fight, because just like the video of the volcano, it's tough for people. Once it's out there, it's tough for us to go, wait a second, it's not true. No, this is the truth. And so that becomes the challenge for us from a communication perspective. So what we really need to look at is identifying, you know, how do we go about identifying misinformation? How do we go about looking at, is it true? What's the source? You know, if we look at the source of that information, what's its mission? Is this a legitimate source? Is this an actual valued source that does their due diligence? And, you know, we need to look at, is there more to the story? Is there more that is out there? When you start to investigate, are there more sources? Are there supporting sources that say that the story is true? And look at who wrote it. Look at, you know, what that source is. And I'm in Canada, and we have some publications that when you read it, you go, oh, okay, I know what that's about. It's not true, but it's you know, it's clickbait. It's a way to get you to read the story. So, you know, is it a joke? Sometimes the big problem with humor, particularly written, is it's very subjective. And what's really funny, I tell this to people when I do media training, you know, don't use humor, because what's really funny to you may not be so funny to the next person. And they may not be able to see through that area of humor and be able to discern that it's just a joke. And check your own biases too. Does what you're reading support what you believe and support what you think and the way that you think? And are you looking at things from a critical perspective? And check the date. I have a great example. I have somebody I'm friends with on social media, and she is like the most unreliable person for information. And a really good example is she's a real animal lover, and there's a lot of forums that post lost animals, and she jumps on that bandwagon all the time. And she posted a lost dog story, and didn't do any of these things on the list. Posted the lost dog story, and her comment was, "Please help please help this dog to find his way home." And when I looked at the date, it was from 2019, and she posted this recently. And when you looked further into the post, so I mean, I look at these things critically. I clicked on the person who lost the dog. They in fact have found their dog. They found their dog in 2019. So she is propagating this whole thing with this dog that's supposedly lost, that's hopefully still at home. So that she doesn't do the critical analysis. And I sent her a note and said, "Hey, just so you know, that dog found his way home in 2019. And I said, "You might want to take your post down." "Oh no, it's good to share those things so that people know that sometimes dogs are lost." So there's still people out there probably sharing this poor dog that was lost 3 years ago.
Nancy, may I jump in? It's Melinda, and just ask you a little question at this point, because it's a particular, I guess, concern of mine. I wonder, are you seeing a lot of this over in, say, more of the region where you are, and in Canada, where there is less of this ability to have that critical thinking? I know I can speak for Australia. I'm based in Melbourne, where there's been a big conversation around education. They've stripped out funding for critical thinking and arts degrees, and fact checking has sort of been stripped from some sort of areas of journalism. And because we've got sort of citizen journalism, a lot of curated content, a lot of that discipline's not there. It's a huge concern, and really plays to the whole question around ethics. And I wonder, do you have any thoughts around that, and how you people might sort of build that in as a muscle, or any areas or courses that you might direct them to? As I said, particularly in Australia, without what I would consider those fundamental things around critical thinking, that's really been stripped out of, say, the arts courses that aren't as available or are far more costly for people now.
And you're right. I mean, I think this is a global issue. I don't think this is a regional issue. I think this is a global issue. If you just look at media, and you look at how media has changed even in the last 10 years, the advent of citizen journalism and what that brings, we have right now, I think that it's sort of become, sadly, a global story. We have these truck protests right now in our capital and locally in the province that I live in. And it's all about misinformation. It's all about a group of people who, I think are just angry about a lot of things, and have used COVID as an excuse to share their anger. But the challenge is that there's a lot of misinformation that comes out of those stories. And if you don't have the ability to think critically, and you're right, I mean, we're not teaching this, and it's I've often said it's really tough to teach people common sense. We can teach them how to write, we can teach them how to edit, we can teach them whatever skills we need to teach them, but having that common sense is really tough. And critical thinking is really important. And I think the part that's missing in a lot of this is journalism and reporters are stretched to the max. Journalism is not what it was even 10 years ago, and social media gives people who aren't authorities and aren't experts on subjects the platform. And sort of going back to what Dr. Sab was talking about, you've got a lot of influencers, and people are getting their news from influencers. They're getting their news from places that aren't credible, and aren't doing the fact checking that needs to be done. So I think as communicators creates a much more complex world for us to communicate our message in. And the lack of critical thinking is really making that challenging, both on the audience side and the and not only the organizations that we work for, but the people that we work with.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nancy. It's really interesting insights that you share. And I think my concern is that whole echo chamber that we talk about too.
Yeah.
And that's frightening. But anyway, don't let me stop you. Thanks for letting me ask you that question.
No problem. And happy to take any questions as they come along, if anybody has questions as we go through this. You know, the challenge is, how do we stop this? And this is, I think, a bit what you were just talking about is, you know, we have to correct the incorrect, and we have to share content, and we have to share correct content. And the big thing that people have to do is research to make sure your facts are correct. You know, if you're going to comment on things on social media, make sure that it's about fact and not emotion. And we you know, I think it's probably fair to say in the areas that you all are in is the same. Particularly with COVID, there's a lot of emotion that comes with the way that people have been sharing things. But we see this with a lot of other issues too. I do a lot of crisis management in my career, and you see a lot of emotion that comes into crisis situations where facts come after and emotion and reaction comes first. And we really need to sort of, if we check our own behavior, we can help to manage this going forward. If things, you know, this is the basic tenet, I think, of communication. If the facts aren't correct, we need to correct them, and we need to make sure that we go back to the source and say, hey, wait a second, this isn't correct. We want a retraction. We want the facts corrected, because as a communicator, we all know that if we don't do that, we live with those incorrect facts for the rest of our days and spend the rest of our days trying to correct those and correct those errors. And so sharing the factual information is critical, and then correcting them as they go on is also really important. And there's lots and lots of resources out there. So, you know, to your point, Melinda, about things that you can do, I just pulled a smattering of things that are out there, but there's things that you can add, for example, to Chrome. Trusted News is one, and I don't advocate for any of these. They're just things that I picked up in some research and have heard from other people that they use. But Trusted News is one. You can add it to Chrome. Google has fact-checking tools. If you use Google, you can, you know, get what they believe is trusted results. There's a program called NewsGuard that helps you decide which news sources are there to trust, and it's not algorithm based, which is, you know, a little bit better than some of the algorithms that skew content to what you've looked at. If you've ever, this happens to me frequently, where I sit in a restaurant, talk to a friend about something, and then go home and look at my social media, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on the right side saying, you were interested in blue pens. Here's 15 kinds of blue pens. So NewsGuard is another thing that's out there. And then there's also a verification handbook that you can get as well, that helps you to, you know, verify digital content. So there's lots and lots of resources out there. One of the other things I came across that's really helpful is the Canadian Public Relations Society in Canada has produced a professional standards decision tree. And you can find this on their website, but it basically walks you through a process that helps you, you know, if you're working on a project or you're working on something and you're not quite sure about it, you can go through this thought process about, you know, and there's different gates that take you to helping you to make that decision. So, you know, there's tons and tons of things from an ethical perspective out there to help you make your decisions, to help you find the right solutions and ask the right questions to come to the right conclusions. IABC also has a ton of content on the website, and I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it yet, is the IABC Guide for Practical Communication. It has a whole section on ethics and some case scenarios that you could work through, some really, really good points that Barbara Puffer wrote up this section. And I know that Ross was talking about an interview that will be posted talking with her. And I really encourage you to listen to that and to look at this section, because there's some really invaluable information in there. Dr. Sab, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're sharing this ethics decision process tree, and you're talking about I think each organization has its own code of ethics, but personally, right, sometimes I feel like having this code of ethics is somewhat could be like a utopian kind of idea, because like for me, I work with strategic communication department. Sometimes when we let's say I design a campaign, and I design it from what I think through this process of ethical decision process and all that. But when it comes to my CEO, and the CEO decides that no, I don't want it this way, I want it that. So at the end of the day, our bosses or people in charge gets to veto whatever ethical process that we have gone through, and we have like what the bosses want, the bosses gets. So what would your comments be on that, Nancy?
So Malar and I have had this conversation before, because I think a lot of this is very regional. I think it's a little bit different in North America than it is in the regions that you have to deal with. And IABC, you sort of segue nicely into my next slide, which is the IABC Code of Ethics. All members of IABC are asked to adhere to this Code of Ethics, and to use this as the gauge and the guide for how we make decisions. And I think the big challenge that you have is that regionally your environment is a lot different. And I think IABC sort of talked about this and had conversations about this is the fundamentals of the Code of Ethics are sort of a code of behavior and a code of conduct. But how do we keep our bosses in check? And what are the consequences to that too? Within my environment, I've had very serious conversations on 2 occasions in my career where I've worked in places where I've been asked to do something that were outside of the bounds of what I believe to be ethical. And in both cases, in one case, I was willing to quit my job. And in the other case, I think it was a misunderstanding. But not everybody's in that position. Not everybody's willing to walk away from their job for something that they think is ethical. And sort of as Melinda said earlier, we take our reputation with us. So that was my conversation with my boss, and this was many years ago, but my conversation with my boss was, if I do this, this is my reputation that's on the line. It's the organization's reputation and my reputation. I'm not willing to do that, and I'm not willing to sacrifice that. So either we come to a compromise or I got to leave. And I think it's challenging because the environment that you have makes it difficult for that to be the case, because you don't fix it by leaving. You only go to the next place where that has that challenge. So I think that a lot of that is societal and a lot of that is regional.
Nancy, I have a question from Adib. May I just throw that to you?
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for the question as well, Adib. So his question is, internal comms is moving more towards the spaces where employees are choosing to have conversations rather than spaces where the organization wants them to. What are some trust, ethics, information dissemination considerations for communicators and engagement in this setting? Adib, feel free to jump in and clarify anything there as well. You can direct it to Nancy yourself.
Can I jump in there? We're going to we're still really keen to break into the breakout rooms, and Adib is in Nancy's breakout room, so perhaps that question could be asked specifically there, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm really keen for some smaller group discussions. We're going to break into the breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. We'll come back and then we'll launch into a final Q&A session. And so the breakout rooms are open now. We'll see you back here in about 5 or 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I feel so look, everyone was there to the last minute, so if you were abruptly kicked out of the room after that minute, I'm apologize for that from experience. Sometimes I've been in mid-sentence and kicked out. But look, I jumped into most of those rooms. There were some really good conversations. Bilal, any key issues from your rooms? Your room, sorry?
Yeah, I mean, we need more time. We're not done yet.
We do.
So in our little group, the issue came up about being asked by some of our bosses to do things that is not right, is against our value system. And what do? We can't be jumping jobs all the time. Okay, that was one scenario. Yeah. So that's a huge challenge and tussle there. And one of the responses that came back from our teammate in Australia is she was from a media background, so she said it's important to take a stand, because if you do fold on ethics, you do something that's not right, that follows you wherever you go. So in her case, she said what she did was she tried to negotiate with whoever with the requester, and most of the time, if you can make a case, you can find middle ground. But if there is no middle ground, she sticks to the ethics of it all. So again, I think what you were saying earlier, that sometimes it's maybe regional or the countries that we're in, the challenge is a little bit heavier on one side. Yeah, so that's our group.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different aspects to dealing with that, with ethics and regional issues and job sectors. And where you are in your career, and there's just so many of them. So thank you for that. Dr. Sab, any key issues, questions from your group?
Yeah, so we were talking about, who actually determines what is considered as false information, and the issue of bias, the issue of ownership, because political affiliations and how it's highly related to the decision or categorizing what is true or false and according to whom, right? And then it went on to about the loss of trust, and also how culture somehow. We were talking about like the Asian culture and how we have this attitude where even though we know that information may not be right, it's dubious, but we have this it's okay attitude because out of respect and all that, so we would not correct any misinfo, disinfo, or anything because out of that respect thing. So that was basically what we had time to discuss. We wish there was more time actually.
We could have had hours on this, so maybe that's a lesson for us for our next webinar. And finally, Nancy.
So we also could have had a lot more time, and probably needed a lot more time. We had a little conversation in the beginning about some of the things happening here in Canada, and how they may or may not resolve themselves. And then Adib was getting to his question that he tried to ask before we went into the breakout sessions, and we got cut off. So we didn't get to address poor Adib's question again. So yeah, it was we started out with a sort of a diverging conversation and didn't get back to where we wanted to get to, but good conversation in the group.
We're going to leave them wanting more. So that's our little hook for IABC members. If you are an IABC member, you do get to have more of these conversations with other members as well. But if you're not a member, we've got a range of sessions coming up. Melinda,
look,
how have you found today's session?
I have loved it. And just once again, thank you everyone for getting involved. I just want to leave you with this because I think George Orwell's 1984 is a great cautionary tale for if we ever find ourselves in a world of misinformation and disinformation. I really love this line that says, speaking the truth in times of universal deceit is an act of treason or it's a revolutionary act. So I think that's really important for us to bear in mind that just like democracy, these things can be a slippery slope and it can be gone without us even realizing. So, hold the line there. Think about ethics all the time.
Yeah, look, I've often advised senior managers that, sometimes the truth is ugly, but it's still the truth. And, if you stick to doing what is right and ethics, guided by things like the IABC Code of Practice and Ethics, that can be your compass. Speaking of compass, for those of you wanting more about IABC and more about the discussions about ethics, next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, check your local times, but on our IABC APAC socials, 2 of the 20 plus that I manage, or I'm involved with, I should say, not thankfully I don't manage them all. We've got a great conversation with Barbara Puffer, who I mentioned earlier, literally wrote the chapter on ethics from IABC's Global Standard Primer. Great book to get from Amazon if you want more on ethics, strategy, tactics, new media, whole range of issues in there. We also talk with Zora. We're going to talk with Zora Artis, who developed IABC's Ethics in a Box program, which is available for individuals and chapters and regions to run particular workshops on ethics as well. So that's it for this interactive session. I'm going to call it to a close, but we'll stick around, and if just like a regular networking event, if you want to stick around and have a chat to anyone, you're more than welcome to do that. But from myself, Melinda Coyne, a big thank you to all of the participants, and especially our 2 presenters today, Dr. Sab and Nancy Arab. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Ross. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Thanks, Ross.
Bye.